Hello everybody, it's Emma here. I hope you're well. Welcome to this lesson, the first in a series of 10 lessons on Jekyll and Hyde. Today we are going to look at context and I'm going to give you an introduction. Learning objectives. Understand historical and social context of Jekyll and Hyde. Recognise key Gothic tropes in the text. Explore Victorian repression and respectability. Analyse the description of Soho as symbolic of hidden desires. What do you know about the Victorian era? What fears or anxieties might society have faced? What comes to mind when you hear the word Gothic? These are a few questions that I'd like you to think about. Use your existing knowledge, and if you have a study guide, have a look through that. Then I'll go through some sample answers with you. What do you know about the Victorian era? Class divisions were huge. The aristocracy and upper middle class lived in opulence, while the working class often struggled in harsh conditions. Morality and etiquette were strict and sometimes hypocritical, with an emphasis on propriety, modesty, and duty, though scandals and double standards were common beneath the surface. Victorian society was rife with anxieties and fears, many of which stem from the rapid changes happening during the era. These fears often reflected broader societal concerns about identity, morality, and the future. Industrialisation created a growing divide between the rich and poor. The harsh working conditions and overcrowded urban areas led to social unrest and labour strikes. Victorians feared a potential working class uprising, especially after seeing the effects of revolutions across Europe, like the 1848 revolutions, and the increasing popularity of socialist and Marxist ideas. The poor were often seen as a dangerous class, and there were growing concerns that the lower classes might challenge the existing social order. So, what comes to mind when you hear the word Gothic? Gothic literature evokes a dark, mysterious atmosphere, often involving haunted castles, gloomy landscapes, and complex, troubled characters. Works like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Bram Stoker's Dracula, and Edgar Allan Poe's poems and short stories are classic examples of this genre, as is, obviously, Jekyll and Hyde, which is what we're looking at in this scheme of work. Stevenson's ill health, travels, and fascination with duality. Victorian London had extremes of wealth and poverty. Fear of the unknown, mystery and secrecy, the supernatural or unexplainable, dark settings and psychological terror are all elements of the Gothic genre. London is a city of contrasts, historic and modern, affluent and impoverished, traditional and cutting edge. This duality can be used to represent the inner conflict of characters living double lives. For instance, one side of their life might be in a posh, glamorous part of London like Mayfair, while the other exists in the darker, more gritty side of the city, such as the East End or Soho. These contrasting settings could mirror the split between a character's public persona and their secret life. Victorian repression and respectability. A strict moral code but hidden vices. Appearance versus reality in Victorian society. So, why write about respectable people hiding dark urges? We all have contradictions within us. The idea of a seemingly respectable person hiding darker urges or impulses highlights the complexity of human nature. People often wrestle with their desires, morals, and the tension between who they are and who society expects them to be. Writing about this conflict allows for exploration of the depths of human psychology, making the characters feel more authentic and multidimensional. So, how does this description of Soho help us to understand Victorian anxieties about duality? Please take a moment to note down that question. Then I'm going to go through the extract and, as always, a model answer. Extract from Chapter 4. The dismal quarter of Soho, with its muddy ways and slatternly passengers. The lamps, which had never been extinguished or had been kindled afresh to combat this mournful reinvasion of darkness, seemed in the district to have been but newly set alight to make a sordid negligence more glaring and to prolong the ill conditions of the foggy evening. Just spend a moment or two going through the extract, jotting down some ideas, and then have a go at answering the question on the previous slide. If need be, pause the video and go back over. Model answer. The description of Soho in this extract powerfully reflects Victorian anxieties about duality, particularly the tension between outward respectability and hidden moral decay. The dismal quarter evokes an atmosphere of gloom and danger, suggesting a place where society's darker urges and vices flourish beneath the surface. The imagery of muddy ways and slatternly passengers contrasts sharply with Victorian ideals of cleanliness and decorum, highlighting fears that beneath London's elegant exterior lies filth and disorder. Moreover, the reference to the lamps, kindled afresh to combat this mournful reinvasion of darkness, symbolises the fragile effort to keep darkness, both literal and metaphorical, at bay. The Victorian obsession with maintaining appearances is captured in the idea that these lights only make the sordid negligence more glaring. In other words, attempts to mask or suppress the immoral underworld only serve to highlight its presence. Soho itself represents a liminal space, geographically part of respectable London, but morally ambiguous, much like Dr. Jekyll's dual existence. This setting reinforces Victorian fears that every respectable gentleman might harbour a secret, darker self, mirroring societal anxieties about the duality of human nature and the struggle between outward respectability and inner corruption. That's it for today's lesson. I hope that you found it helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in lesson 2.